Welcome to Dads with Startups, a podcast about a couple of entrepreneurs who put family first. How's it going, Kevin?
Doing well. How's it going with you, John?
Pretty good.
You hear me?
Um,
Nice.
I just uh, I just listed my house for sale on Friday, my current house,
All right.
and I got an offer on Sunday morning. So stayed
Jeez.
on the market for barely over 24 hours, probably 30 hours on the market.
Amazing.
So it's under contract.
Good
Glad
offer.
to have that part. Yeah, really good offer, and
Very cool.
they're being flexible and letting us stay in our current home until our new home is done being built.
Oh, great.
That's a big
Oh, that's a
plus.
nice. It's a deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's it's
Oh,
pretty nuts right now, and it doesn't sound like it's gonna slow down anytime soon with the prices and all. So I'm coming at it from the other side. We're looking to buy a house in the next maybe 6 months. So we're, having to play, that game of like, what benefits or what ways can we,
yeah.
sweeten the deal? Think about
Remind me,
those
do
things.
you own already, or are you renting
No, we
currently?
rent right now, and we were so, we weren't even sure we're gonna stay in Phoenix. It was like, oh, let's just rent another year until we figure out, where we're going. We might go back to Austin, and now it's like, well, that would have been the time to buy it. We should just bought it when we like were
Meanwhile,
ready
prices
to do it. But
doubled.
yeah, but the good thing is, I mean, right now we are considering living in Phoenix for the mountains, and so if we had bought, we maybe actually it probably would have been fine, but just made a bunch of money and then gone. So it would have been a good time to buy it back then.
Yeah. Well, good luck. You just casually
Yeah,
looking,
you
or are
too.
you guys like, do you have an agent
We
like
have
actively?
some time, yeah, because we
Gotcha.
have our lease ends in July, so we have what we're actually thinking of doing is just like buying up in the mountains and just kind of like occupying it enough and then maybe renting it out, something like that for a
Yeah.
little while before our lease ends. But just, we're planning to spend some time up
Nice.
there anyway. So we're just going to go up back and forth a little bit.
You
So
thinking up where you were a couple weeks ago when you guys
I
were?
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're looking at maybe the North Arizona on the east side versus maybe like versus Flagstaff or something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
one of those, there's little
Pine Top
towns up there.
Lakeside area.
Yeah,
Both.
exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
So those are kind of just feel like after that, I was like, the kids, they could use that. Now, on the other hand, I just came from Mexico City as of like 2 days ago for the Dynamite Circle. Has a They used to have a yearly kind of gathering, big gathering. Used to be called DCBKK for some of you who might listen and know about that group. And so we had our first one outside of BKK. It was in Mexico City for the first time, and it was an incredible event. And I will say that living in the neighborhood where a bunch of diplomats and embassies are is not a bad deal either. That's for half the cost. I mean, for what we're paying here in Phoenix, I was looking at some of the rents there. It's like we might be paying less in in that neighborhood, which is basically like living in a fancy neighborhood of Rome, Italy, or something like that.
Yeah.
We probably would be paying less than we're paying for our, very bland suburban lifestyle right now. So we're kind of like playing with the idea right now of like, what would it be like to, go down there? I went to like a talk given by and this is relevant to the podcast because Dads with Startups, right? So I go to the talk on like,
Yeah.
how do you raise your kids abroad and run your own business? And the speaker who lives in Mexico City, he's lived there for the past 5 years. He lived in Thailand for 5 years with his three kids. He lived in Hungary with his three kids, or actually, I think they were kind of born along the way, so not all of them. But the gist of it being that he's living in this beautiful neighborhood. He's got a full time nanny for $600 who cooks and cleans, and he's got basically this like he's walking down the streets and it's like you're living in Beverly Hills but you're paying Phoenix prices effectively, and you're getting international
Yeah.
school. He's like, we decided we were going to try to be, find a school where, there wasn't a danger of our children being invited to go on a private jet, and go to the Alps for the weekend. We wanted to find a much more practical school. It was like, oh, those are the problems that he's facing. So Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm definitely toying with that idea. Like, what would it be like to live down there maybe 8 or 9 months of the year, where when the weather's always nice down there, and then maybe come up for summers or something like that, and go into the woods. So, just playing with the idea. Who knows what will happen? But it's just stuff to think about. And some of the benefits that kids get is pretty cool too, with just the international lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Um, Part of me wants to have that life. The other part of me thinks about how I have 4 kids, and they're all 8 and under,
Yeah.
and then I'm
Oh
like,
my
"I
gosh.
don't want
Yeah.
that. I don't want that life. I want that life, but not that life." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. It's a lot. I mean, I also know a friend who was traveling the world with his 4 kids, and when I met him, it was 2, 4, 6, and 8. I think they're older
uh-huh.
now, but it was like they were quite courageous. But yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons, all this stuff. I'm sure I certainly got the dreamlike fantasy version of it. So I'm sure there's the
Yeah,
reality, but I had to say it was lovely. Seeing a different side of Mexico than I haven't spent much time in Mexico City, so it was a really nice, treat to see it.
that's cool. I have friends who, leave they'll just leave the country for, like, 8-month period or something, you
Wow.
know?
Yeah,
Find a
nice.
place to rent and kind of a long-term vacation feeling type, to
Mhm.
it, and if you
Yeah,
can
that's
work
great.
remotely, then that could work and give you that
Where have they
experience and
gone?
I have a buddy who went to Portugal, and,
Mhm.
his feedback was it was a little long because
Mhm.
they weren't there long enough to root themselves into kind of a
Gotcha.
sub um, you know, social circle, and,
Yeah, yeah.
they kind of they planned on staying in this one city the whole time, and they got a little bit bored. Like, they saw everything there was to see, and, um,
Yes.
so he wishes it was shorter or they had mixed it up a little bit, but,
Sure. Makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
That's cool.
anyway,
Yeah,
so,
so we got so
tell me more about that
any
conference, man.
updates? Oh, yeah, the conference, I have to say that I some of the listeners in here might have gone to microconf, remote for the past couple of years, and I did as well, and that was certainly got a lot of value out of that from just the speakers. But it is, and I think actually Rob Walling has said this many times, like the, it's maybe the best part of a conference is in the hallways, hallway track they call it, and I, I've kind of known that, but I will say it was never more true for me until this conference. I found like this conference was really, insightful, and, we did a day of masterminds, which actually I think I wouldn't mind microconf thinking about that idea. Like, before the actual conference starts, you can sign up to do just masterminds. It's just 8 to 5 of just you sitting in a group with the same 8 people or 6 people or something,
Yeah,
and really hashing it out about your business and getting great feedback, and that was really super helpful for me. I just found it to be, got so many great ideas and also some kind of confirmation about different ideas I had explored, and really, okay, that's a better route to go down. So it really helped me, personally, and then just talking to folks in the hallways, and met a number of people that were like, hey, I want to try your product, let me get on your list as a beta user, and they were down, and that was kind of fun too, just to get some really good feedback, as if in a slight way doing a bit of customer development without really trying,
yeah,
just people saying, yeah, that sounds
yeah,
really interesting, I'd love to try that. So that was really beautiful. And I think because with the dynamite circle, there's this, I was telling somebody about it, like, again, I've been to microconf a number of years, I've been to DC events. This one felt unique because it was, maybe such a diversity of businesses and business types. So when I would get ideas, it wasn't just like, I think there's a tendency for people in the same industry to think like, okay, time to do marketing. Let's see what we do for a SaaS. And it's just like, okay, step one, step two.
yeah,
And this was like, wow, that's a really weird idea. That's coming from someone who runs like an agency, or that's a really weird idea that comes from someone who's doing crypto or, internet marketing, or stuff. So it was very interesting to hear kind of different marketing approaches that I think were relatively unique. Like SEO ideas that from an expert that just does SEO. They're not doing anything else, not doing a SaaS. It was cool. It was very insightful in that sense, and so I'm really came away with a lot actually. So I'm grateful I went.
That's cool. What do you want to share? Takeaway?
Sure. What was a few? I mean, I'd say one of the biggest things that came out for me was I really um, could take advantage of of like influencers as a marketing channel. That something that someone had mentioned to me a while back, but really exploring how to do that. One guy had started his SaaS, and actually I've known him before, but he reminded me of the story. He literally went on Instagram, reached out to like he has a SaaS that focuses on athletic. I'm sorry, like fitness coaches. And so he literally went out, found fitness coaches on Instagram that had a big following, cold emailed them, and his product has grown up from with almost no marketing. I was like one of the only. He's like, I'm not a very good marketer. I just did that, and word of mouth caught on because his problem that he was solving was so relevant that it really had a big impact. But I also think there's also a sense there of he didn't just reach out to random people that he scraped on the internet of fitness coaches with a website, which may or may not have a following. He went for the people with followings that Instagram tells you this
Yeah.
is how many people follow this person. So you're selecting and filtering for really substantial people that are going to probably, if they adopt your product, are going to tell others about it. And so we just talked about ways that what are some ways I could transform that or translate that to our product, and had some good ideas with that, and something I'm going to explore a little bit. Either that specifically doing that, or maybe kind of an offshoot. But either way, trying to get in front of some folks that have a big audience. And there are people who teach people how to run course businesses, so that probably would be kind of the idea for me
Oh
personally.
yeah. Yeah. There's I don't know the first thing about working with influencers. So did they
Yeah.
suggest do you approach them and ask them what do you offer to pay them to do for you?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. I think it's so funny. I don't even think he was that uh, strategic. I
Specific.
think he literally just, do you want to use my product? Like it was so, it doesn't even sound compelling, but maybe because he had a product that people really could be like, "Wow, I'm doing all this with Excel right now or Google Docs. I would love
Yeah.
a something that could manage it all for me and take care of payments." So it could have been just that it was so compelling as a product. But I think it was literally him just emailing people, and he would find their profile, and then he would just look up, try to get their email somehow offline, and then
Yeah.
he would email them. So I've definitely heard a lot about cold emailing as a potential. I've never been someone to do it, but it's if it's somewhat strategic and not just this kind of like
Shotgun.
everybody and their mother, maybe there's something. Yeah, exactly. Shotgun approach could
Yeah.
be something there.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, so good insights.
Last time we spoke,
What
you
about
were
yourself?
gonna. Oh, well, let's see. What have I been up to? Um, well, I have a potential customer in Canada, so if
Oh,
I get them signed up, that would be my first international customer,
ooh,
right?
nice. All right, very
Um,
cool.
they really like what they see. They started asking me about questions pertaining to their I don't remember the name of it, but freedom, Freedom of Information and something Protection Act
Mm,
in
cool.
Canada, which
Okay.
basically says that if they are storing any personal data, that it has to be on Canadian servers.
Ah,
And
interesting. Okay.
yeah, so you know, AWS has data centers there. I just have to figure out how to deploy to their servers.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
my app is a multi-tenant app, and for people who are listening, that means it's one database, and all of the users and all the accounts are on this one database. So when I
Mhm.
have city A using Civic Review and city B using Civic Review, they're actually all on the same server. They're not
Sure.
separated.
Right.
Um, and so that'll be tricky. I would probably have to spin up a separate instance just for Canadian
Mm.
customers, and maybe
Yes.
host it at a different URL. Um,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
yeah,
Or could you keep the app the same and host their data in a separate database? I wonder, would that still work for their requirements? That
yeah.
might
One of the tricks is, that I haven't really figured out, but when they log in to the login screen, if it's a universal login screen, how do I have them? I could separate the authentication piece so that they authenticate
Mhm.
just simply using a username and password, right? And then depending on what organization they're on, it
Right.
starts pulling from database A or B.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that would require a little bit more infrastructural work,
Sure.
to make
Yeah.
that happen. And
Yeah.
maybe in the long run,
Retweaking
that
things
would be
and
a little,
reengineering.
yeah, I would definitely have to change a lot there.
Mhm.
I'm thinking probably the path to least resistance for now is
Mhm.
just any
Whole
deploy of the
separate entity.
website would deploy to another server as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. Right.
and maybe down the road, I could probably bring it all back in the fold. Um, but at this point, I'm kind of erring on the side of least resistance, sort of a business
Totally.
decision.
Makes
You know?
sense. I mean, this
Uh,
especially the first one, why re-engineer everything for one so far, and then you can have some
yep.
ideas about how to go forward.
It's a small town. I
Uh,
mean, if it was Vancouver, it might be a
mhm.
different story, right?
Yeah, right, right,
So,
exactly. That's cool. I mean, I think that's
yeah.
what I think you're describing is something that I think will start to affect a lot of SaaS businesses. And so one thing I want to kind of throw out there, because I was just listening to it on the way over here, is the latest Tim Ferriss show with Naval Ravikant. I'm butchering that name, and some other guy, and both very smart individuals. But they're talking about Web 3.0, which you're hearing more and more. It's been a long time since we heard about Web 2.0, so I mean, it's for some people this is probably
Yep.
the first time they've heard any kind of web version. But the crux of it, there's a part in there where they really effectively say, all SaaSes are going to be disrupted. So if you're a SaaS owner, good luck. So, with the feeling that I think they're really talking in big time about more of like a social media, SaaS, if you will, with quotes.
Mhm.
But I think eventually all of them, because the notion is that everybody doesn't want their data and personal information on other people's servers. What they want is to own it and have it and take it with them wherever they go. So it's like I could check in to your service maybe as a civilian, as a citizen, and instead of having to put all my information in there, there's some sort of public key and private key, and your system gets to have just certain aspects that maybe are granted to it, and maybe they only last for a moment or as long as your system needs it, and then it's taken away. Or I could see there being some sort of overarching decentralized authentication system such that our database is filled with usernames and passwords. Maybe that's gone away in 5-10 years. So um
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, there's a company here in Utah doing that. I had a conversation with them recently. They were building out exactly what you described,
Mm,
using blockchain, and
nice.
they talked to me because Civic Review issues permits and licenses to people.
Hmm.
So with the license side, let's say it's a business license, and they were saying, hey, what if they get a copy of their business license? It's essentially an NFT of their business license,
Right.
right? Nobody else can fake it. It's been
Exactly.
authenticated by a civic review. And then they could go to another
Hmm.
city and say, look, I already have a business license. Check
Right.
it. Check the validity in civic review.
Exactly.
Pretty
Yeah.
interesting idea there, I thought. So I think
Yeah. I
definitely
my
that technology could
Mhm.
influence my business.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually thinking about your business on the way here. I said, well, I bet it could affect most assets, but I can't see how it could affect John's business. But it's funny that you have an idea right there as you're
Yeah,
thinking about it. So
yeah, it's
it
already
really does sound like, I mean, so I have two things about this though. Like, okay, in the podcast they keep saying, if you're centrally serving someone and if you're serving people in a centralized way, like with a SaaS, which all of us are, your business is out the door. Good luck, uh, don't let the door slap you on the way out. And it's like, okay, and they're kind of using as an example open source and how it came on the scene in the late '90s, right? And it's funny, like they in a way, what they're kind of suggesting is that okay, any kind of commerce that if you're able to make a buck off people, maybe you won't be able to in the future. You're going to be disrupted. Everything can be free and open, and just yeah, la la land, great. But I think what's interesting though is that if I remember back in late '90s, I remember I had a couple friends that just talked to me about open source. They're like, Linux is going to take over everything. And not only that, but Microsoft is going to be destroyed. No, there'll be no more Windows and Linux will be what everyone's using. And you
yep,
know what? So it just goes to show, like, yes, there will be disruption, but there also won't be. So I think there's still lots of opportunities down the road. I think we're all still using either Windows or Mac, and most people are not using Linux. But on the other hand, lots of servers. I mean, 99% of servers are. So just never know
yeah,
how these
that's
things
true.
go.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for tried and true technologies and practices, you
Yeah,
know? I mean,
right.
think about email. Email is still predominantly the primary method for communicating, um, and it doesn't look like it's gonna go away, and a lot of people
No.
have said, especially when social media first came out, they're like, "Nobody's gonna use email," and
Yeah.
here we
Yeah.
are, these social media
Here we
networks
are.
ruined the social media experience, and so everybody's going back to email.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. Exactly. So
so and
true.
everything has its place. NFTs are cool, and there's
Right.
definitely a lot of applications for it there, but it's not I have trouble jumping on the hype bandwagon of, the whole
Yeah.
internet is gonna run this way. I mean,
Exactly.
distributed networks are great and everything, but there's, yeah, it'll have its place once the dust settles, I think.
Right. Yeah, there's a few examples like cable TV that, their time is coming and maybe the music industry had its kind, but not everything went that way. So, like you say, you
Yeah,
got to be careful of the hype. And if you're providing value, people want to pay you for it. So,
yeah, yep, and here we go, records are more popular than digital CDs.
isn't
Look at
that
that.
funny?
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
So what else is new with you? Family front? Family's doing okay?
Yeah, family doing all right. Our Our daughters are like the youngest one's just starting to really talk. She's getting much more vocal now, so that's kind of a trip to see that. And I was gone for a week, so it's like I came back after a week, and it was like, "Oh, do I know you? I feel like you've grown about 3 months or something like that," which is a big
Yeah,
deal in the parent side of things. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think you know I'm coming back with a sense of like, okay, um, how can I really ramp up this business and this product and market and stuff like that, and also at the same time keep the focus and not let go of the focus on the family because that's something that I've really treasured and value.
yeah,
There was a funny, in our just as a little aside, like there was a guy in our group when we're talking about kids and family. He didn't have children, and he's SaaS guy, and he's like Mr. Organized Business, and he was just like, I don't want to change a diaper. I never want to have to wake up in the middle of the night. So I'm gonna have all these systems in place, and we're gonna do this. It's like, and we were all kind of like the parents were just like, dude, do your best, but don't expect that your plans are going to be going that direction. I think you might be surprised at how children will throw your plans out the window.
yeah,
But I still thought, what can you find this balance? And what came to me while I was there was one thing that I haven't really thought about is I can easily start to build up these sort of marketing channels or development channels or whatever it is I spend my time doing, especially with marketing. This happens where it's like, okay, I'm going to do YouTube strategy, I'm going to do SEO, I'm going to do, you know, podcast. I'm going to do, get on podcasts. I'm going to, whatever else. I have 5 different ideas, and non-strategically, I just start like, okay, a little here, a little here, a little, and just like that's as if that's the right way to go about it. And as I was listening and talking to folks that were also parents and also running businesses, the thing that kept coming up over and over again was choose one, choose two,
Yeah.
the ones that are working, and just double down and stop letting your mind get distracted by these other little like they might make a dent, they might move it a little bit, but if it's even if it's only 5 or 10%, you should be focusing on the thing that's going to move it 80%. It's that 80/20 kind of
Oh
mentality. And
yeah.
so, yeah, just can't kind of was a good reminder. I'm not sure if that's something that you've thought about at all with your business and family and stuff like that.
Um, Paul Graham, he I listened to talk. I think it was Paul Graham that was speaking. Um, it was either him or Peter Thiel. It's part of a Y Combinator
Mm,
lecture series that I listened to in podcast form once. And I remember he said he had kids, small kids. He was just like, kids are awesome. He was like, if there's one thing you remember is have kids. Talking to a
yeah.
bunch of Stanford students.
Yeah.
You know, and
Nice.
kids are probably the last thing on their mind.
Right.
But I think he was saying, you as a startup owner, you can have one hobby outside of work. And he was like,
Mm,
for some people, for some people that hobby is family, you know. For some people that hobby can be skiing or fishing or whatever it is, but he's
yes.
like, you really only have time for one, so you just
That
got to
one.
pick one and then just understand the rest are just going to have to wait, right? Um,
Wow.
and it's totally
That's
true. I
good.
mean, as a parent of 4 kids, there's just I can't go home and then just do my hobby, I pretty much help with the
Yeah.
kids, help out with
Right.
dinner, help my wife, keep her
Exactly.
from going insane, give her a little chance
Right.
to decompress after watching the kids, um, and then we tuck them in bed, and then by then we're just exhausted, and that's when you kinda have a little bit of
Yep.
decompression, TV time or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and, we do our hobby is skiing, so we do kinda
Mm,
squeeze that in, but
nice.
I've merged that with family, right? I take my kids skiing,
Okay,
so
nice.
I found a way to have 2 hobbies, family
There you
and
go.
and skiing. But, yeah, it's totally true.
That's
You
great.
kinda just gotta focus. You could really spread yourself too thin.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a really interesting point about family being the hobby, and I feel like that is about as true as you can get, right now in my life. Is just like I'd love to kind of take up other stuff. Um, Exercise can maybe be thrown in there because it's just sort of a necessity, and maybe you can make that into a
Yeah,
hobby. Like I play tennis fairly often. Before COVID, I was playing a lot more, but that's fun. That's once or twice a week. My wife does jujitsu, and that's a
cool.
great distressor. So that's a good excuse to kind of like go and do a hobby,
Yeah,
because it's like you need to mentally and physically get a little break. But besides that, like, yeah, like you're saying, you can't come home and then start working on, okay, I'm building a piece of furniture in the woodshed, maybe unless your kids are older and they're on their way, to college or something, or I don't know,
yeah,
or so. But
yep,
I think when you have young kids, it's just not at all, not likely going to happen that you get to come home and focus on your stamp collection or
right.
something, or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the dream if you can find a hobby that you can involve your kids and family in,
Yeah.
that's where and your kids are a little young still, but pretty
Hmm.
soon you can start teaching them to play tennis,
Right.
and,
Right. Totally.
and then you can start playing gotta teach your wife, and you can play doubles.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Alright, before we wrap up, I made a note for myself that I was gonna follow up with you because you were gonna update your website. You had a bunch of updates
Yeah.
in the pipeline with
Yes.
regard to funnels, marketing funnels. So how did that go?
I was. Okay, so complete honesty, it's not done, but I am very
Yeah,
proud of the progress I've made. So I will say that I'm definitely I'd say about halfway done, and, given that I really thought I was gonna go to the conference and just have, like, a lot of downtime, and it turned out I just didn't. So I took one day while I was there and mostly just showed up to, like, half the talks, and I got actually a lot done that day. So but it's coming along really well. The nice thing is we had a designer back in the day do it, and so it's all in Figma. It's all mocked up, and so I have to say this is my one of my first times taking a designer's design and actually just making it happen. And like I'm using Elementor, and wow, it's so nice. Like, oh, I used to have to like think I thought I was a good designer. I never really was. I kind of knew I was not. But I could pull something off, and this is just so nice just to take it and like, ooh, looks good, and now it's looking good on
Yeah,
the in the real site. So that's coming along. I'd say, like I say, I'm building out right now the front page and all the kind of like language what kind of language am I using and stuff like that. And I'm guessing by the end of the week I'll have the site done, and then next week I'll be working on okay, now what to hooking up to and what do those funnels look like, what's that, what's those emails that are going out. So taking a little longer than expected, but I'm definitely making progress.
nice. We focused on we did a little bit of marketing work. Um, my I had a plan. I always had this plan to put together kind of like an email series that would go out to people who we
Nice.
did demos with. Our sales cycle can sometimes be a little long. They'll start going down it and then they'll find out, oh, we got to wait until budget planning next year, right? And so
Yeah.
there's this 8 month period where we don't really have a lot to say to them. There's nothing we can really do to push the sale along.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
so we put together a list, an email series highlighting different
Hmm.
features in the software.
Okay.
So maybe once a month they get this email, or maybe a little
Huh.
more frequently. They get an email that talks about just this one feature, and
Okay.
probably something we briefly talked about in our demo, but hopefully something to get them excited about,
Right.
right? And
Gotcha.
each email is going to have a small piece of content with a link that goes to a web page that has a little more visuals and everything. And
Gotcha.
so
Nice.
we can kind of measure the success of the emails by are they clicking
Yeah.
through to the web page. Um,
Yes.
we've got 5 of them built. We need enough to cover a series for some of our Arizona prospects. Um,
Okay, nice.
and yeah, and so
So they're unique to the location or just no, not they're not you
these
just happen to they just happen to be in Arizona.
These ones are we went to a conference in Arizona and,
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
yeah, that audience has a specific set of needs, so we're kind of putting together a topic and a
Something
cadence of
tailored.
emails to go out for them.
Cool.
Um, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of we plan on having about 25 total, and then we can kind of pick and choose which
Very
emails
cool.
to use for different demographics. Um, but I've been in charge of updating the WordPress content with, with the emails. My customer success representative, she she works remotely in Arizona, and
Mhm.
she was an English major back in the day, and so she's pretty good at
Mm,
writing, and she has a perfect sense of humor in all of her writing, and so
nice.
she's been working on that. But today I did a little, or yesterday I did a little training session teaching her how to use WordPress. My goal is that she can do everything. I'm a bit of a designer myself, so I can help out with some of the design aspects, but she can kind of put it all together. So that's the
Oh,
goal. We'll
very
have to
cool.
see in 2
Love it.
weeks how far we came along.
Yeah, totally. I have a lo I'm curious about that. One quick question though, do you on your site with like an opt-in box for your email, do you invite them to a demo? Do you just say join the list? What's worked for you when you want to actually have a demo or when that's the
So
goal?
these emails are new, so I can't really say what has worked. Um,
Okay.
but we do have, some calls to action that invite them to request a demo, and we just ask for their
Okay.
name and email address
Nice.
because they're city employees. Just having their email address is enough for us to figure out everything else.
Sure. Gotcha.
So they'll request a demo. And, I don't have a refined inbound marketing system or
Mhm.
machine in place, so I can't really
Yeah.
say how successful that's been or not. I will say that this
But you're getting
city in
signups.
Canada I mentioned earlier, they did find us on
Nice.
Google. Interestingly, they clicked on an ad that I forgot was running, and
Nice. Nice.
that brought them to the site, and then a few
Great.
weeks later, they, requested a demo with us, so, that was
Okay.
really interesting. It was fun to see
I'm
that work.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'll take a look at your site again and just kind of check it out because I want to see. Right now, it's like I have get an invite to like the beta program, and then I'm thinking like, you know what, maybe should try a little bit of like get a demo, see if that moves the needle a little bit, and maybe just experiment a little bit and see what
Yeah,
converts people better. But
that'd be
yeah, I'm just
interesting to
curious, kind of
see.
what's worked for you. But that sounds like a good idea. I mean, and the even the notion of having all these emails going out, I think that's really smart. Just because there are those times. Sounds like you could even schedule them to happen for everybody in a certain like segment at a certain time of year when you know it's like before the opening of the
Yep.
financial year again. So that sounds
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, we definitely have our group of prospects that are kind of just waiting for budget planning season at this point. Yeah.
Right. So they're like the waiting for budget season segment. That sounds smart. And then
Yeah.
just keep their attention. Yeah, smart. Good ideas. Good ideas.
Yeah, and I got really sick of being that sales guy that's just writing an email that's like, "Hey, can I answer any questions? Have you guys decided on
Yeah.
XYZ?" And
Right.
you're just a broken
Exactly.
record, and pretty soon they start ignoring your emails,
Yeah,
and
true, exactly.
so
Right,
this way we
right.
can give them
Exactly.
something that I
Kinda
consider
chew
to
on.
be valuable at least. These are meant for people who have active, you know,
Yeah.
and,
You know what? It might be interesting
so
too, like, since you have a number of customers, it'd be cool to just have like a if you have a feature, maybe in it, here's how it worked for, XYZ town or, Peoria.
oh, yeah, I love
And
that
it'd be interesting
idea.
to see if you could bring in some stories into the feature set and, Tom
Yeah.
worked with us to set it up for whatever. Might be
That's
interesting.
funny. I was thinking just today, we need to build a good database of case studies. That's gonna help a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Maybe that'll be
Yeah,
phase 2.
right, right. Maybe so. I mean, it'd be interesting. Like I was even thinking today for down the road to be like, what, can you incentivize people to, maybe give them a month free? For you guys, probably wouldn't work that well there, but like maybe there's other things you can do to
Yeah.
incentivize. But
Yep.
well,
Cool.
cool.
Alright, Kevin,
Sounds like
you wanna
good
wrap us
stuff.
up?
Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening. And if you like what you're hearing, please do us a favor and leave a review for us on your favorite podcast app. And check out dadswithstartups.com where you can find all of our past episodes. And we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah.